how long have you been a Christian?
I got saved Easter Sunday, 2012. That's 61 years old.
So in between getting saved and receiving the Lord, how much time had passed since you started going out and sharing the gospel? Was it right away?
Oh, no.
Or, so just to answer that, yeah, so.
After I got saved, I was scared to death as a new Christian to go out and share the gospel with people. It frightened me to just confront a stranger. I actually went out probably after when I was about 3 years as a Christian, and it just scared me to death. But then a couple of years after that, 2 years ago, I heard that Eric was out here on Tuesday nights, and for some reason, even though I didn't have a good experience the first time, something told me to come out here and see what's going on. And I did, and I saw how people were receiving the gospel, and I realized it wasn't a confrontational thing, that it was a real sharing, a real love, act of love to be telling people. And I saw what a need there was for people to hear the truth. What a hunger there was on their part to hear the truth and to hear about love. And that prompted me to just keep coming out.
Did you engage in conversation right away when you started coming out, or were you more a listener at that point and watching?
At first I stuck by the wheel and I observed and I prayed, but then just suddenly somebody would say something and I just felt like I had something to add to the conversation, and so I would just say it, and I was encouraged by Eric and the others around me to continue to do that. And so that's really what all I do today, is just as the Spirit prompts me. But after the experience at the wheel, after I saw the hunger that was out there for the truth and for the Word, it made me want to leave the wheel, and now I go out and I find people to talk to. Now I just there's no fear anymore. Satan doesn't have that hold on me anymore that I'm not capable of sharing. I don't know all the answers, but that's okay. So I'm actually now I just go a lot of times and just walk, and I don't look for anything in particular in somebody. Just as I'm walking along, the Spirit just will lead me to someone to talk to.
How long have you been coming out?
2 years now. So I stuck by the wheel probably for about a year. And then it's like, then I was like a vulture sitting up there, and I thought, you know what, I'm tired of waiting around for something to die. I'm going to go down and get something. You know? So I just started walking Main Street, and then that's carried over into other parts of my life. I'm not afraid when I go to the grocery store. If I see someone and the Spirit leads me to start a conversation with them, or at work, or with my family. So it's definitely spilled over into other parts of my life.
Is there a story in particular that kind of strikes a chord with your heart in when you shared the gospel with somebody, or?
There is, yeah. I shared the gospel with a young lady here at the pier one night, and it was after another speaker here had been condemning this group of kids for the way they were dressed. It was the summertime, and all he talked was fire and damnation, and he didn't talk about the love of Jesus. He just talked about the judgment. And I was able to start a conversation with this young lady and tell her about the love of Jesus. And when I told her about Jesus and that he loves her, he doesn't condone her homosexuality, but he loves her. And she just got these tears in her eyes, and she said, nobody has ever spoken to me like that before. She saw the love of Jesus. It wasn't me, it was the love of Jesus. And when you get used like that, you just want more. You just want God to use you more, right? Yeah, that stands out very much so.
Have you started sharing the gospel? You mentioned your neighbors.
Yes.
How often do you, I mean, what is it when you start a conversation with your neighbor? Do you feel like God prompting you, and then do you see God working through, like, are they Christians, or are they non-believers, or is it a mix with your neighbors? Are you more, you said you were less fearful,
Yes.
right? So with your neighbor's house?
It's kind of funny. I when it comes to other people, neighbors, co-workers, or just strangers that I meet in the supermarket, there seems to be some kind of invisible connection when I run across somebody else who's following Jesus already, who's in love with him. When I'm talking to a stranger or to neighbors and I don't know where they're coming from, it usually becomes pretty obvious fairly early on in the conversation. If they don't give me any indication that they are a follower of Jesus, I just kind of wait until there's some kind of a way that I can easily just kind of drop Jesus into the conversation somehow. I was walking at Bellaterra one night, and I wasn't intending to talk to anybody, but I walked by a table with a couple of kids, probably about 14 years old, playing a game. They were competing with each other. And just as I was walking by, one of them said something about their king, and I just it was like, you got to stop here, Ed. I just stopped and I said, hey, you guys, I hear you talking about your kings. You mind if I tell you about the King of Kings? And these guys were totally receptive to it was just a divine appointment. God just said, I want you to talk to these kids. Once you get, it's like a drug almost. Once you start being used by God like that, you just want to, God, use me more. Use me more. Send more people my way. And it also prompts me to study the Word more, so that when I do share, that I'm sharing the truth, that I'm not misrepresenting God. And that's why I like to tell people, here, people that I know that are strong in the Word, if you hear me say something that isn't biblically dead on, say something right there and then. Because I don't want the person I'm talking to, I don't want to be misleading someone, I don't want them to be misleading. So, yeah, it's definitely been a good in prompting me to be in the Word more.
What would you want to say to people that are fearful or doubt or just haven't stepped out of the comfort zone of the pew?
If you're a follower of Jesus, if nothing else, you should know how to pray. You should be a prayer warrior. And if you're afraid of confronting someone with the gospel, then I would say get together with someone who's evangelizing to others and just stand by them, and as they're evangelizing, you pray over that conversation that's taking place. Pray that seeds would be planted. We can all do that. There's nothing confrontational about it. There's nothing to fear. But you can be a participant in that planting. And as you do that, I guarantee you, you're going to move on to the next step and to the next step.
Away from the wheel.
Away from the wheel. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you wanted that you feel it's important to say to?
You know, it is such a blessing to be able to tell people about Jesus. There's people out here that have never heard of Jesus, believe it or not, in this day and age. There's people that have heard of him, but they don't fully understand who he is. There's people that know him, but they haven't accepted him. There's a real hunger out there for people today to hear about the truth. And there's just, I can't think of anything that blesses me more on this earth than to be used by God. There's people out here that God wants them to hear about it. And he's going to find somebody to tell them. If I don't, they're still going to hear the word. If that's God's will. They're just going to hear it from somebody else. But then I lose out on that blessing. There's just nothing that I think is more blessed in this lifetime than to think, wow, God just used me. He just used me. Yes. What's better than that? You know?